I want to quickly show you how to easily add a new lighting position using the chandler as an example. You'll find obviously very frequently in our chandler studio that you want to add some crossbars between the bars that are attached to the catwalks. And I want to quickly show you here how you do that to make sure that the bars that you draw are actually seen by VWX as hanging positions and aren't just bits of line drawings or bits of pipe. There's a difference between a pipe, a lighting pipe, and a hanging position in terms of what attributes are attached to it and if you hang in a light on it and how they interact. So it's important that you make them actual hanging positions and not just lighting pipes. But you do use the lighting pipe tool to draw your architecture. So you use that to draw essentially a symbol that will later become your hanging position. But first of all, we should quickly check that where we are drawing is set to the right height. So I'm working here in the layer LX. The layer LX, if we go into our layer dialog, has an elevation of 0. What that means is if I put anything in that layer, it's initially drawn at an elevation of 0, and then I can give it a Z value to tell it what height I want it to be at. If you look at catwalk structure, for example, that is drawn at an elevation of 4750. So if I was drawing in the layer catwalk structure and I have a Z value in my object info of 0, that item would actually sit at an elevation of 4750 because that Z value in that layer references the layer elevation. So sometimes you might find you're drawing something and it's hovering quite far above the venue. That's usually because you've accidentally drawn it in a layer that in itself has an elevation. So it's worth just checking that what these elevations are sitting at. So LX is sitting at 0, so we won't have any problems there. I quite like my LX layer to have an elevation of 0 because I like to easily see in my object info what height a lantern is at. So if we look up here, this here is a hanging position, and the position name is LX7. This one here is also a hanging position, and its position name is LX8. So now I want to draw a new bar that goes between LX7 and LX8. So in order to do that, let's just check. I am in layer LX, but class, I want to make sure by default you'll probably be working in fixtures mostly when you're rigging, when you're designing. So I'm going to tick hanging position so that I can easily turn on and off these classes. You could, if you wanted to, create a new class for temporary crossbars so that you can turn those on and off using the class function. It's up to you how you want to structure your drawing. So we are going to use the lighting pipe tool, and I'm going to draw a pipe from down here, from LX7 up to LX8, just straight across. Now, the lighting pipe tool, similar to the line tool, I can now continue to draw a continuing pipe. It could be all kinds of shapes that you might want to draw with this, but mine is just a straight across bar, so if I just click again on my endpoint, that ends my drawing of the pipe. You can see now in the object info it doesn't say hanging position, it says lighting pipe. That's quite important. So this pipe is not a hanging position yet, it is just a pipe. Also my Z value is 0 because I'm drawing in the layer LX and I haven't done anything to it, so by default it draws it on the floor. I'm going to change that to 4750 because I know that that's the height of the other two bars. If you wanted to be totally accurate, you could add 48 millimeters to that to indicate that this bar is sitting on top of the other bars, but I'm just going to work from an assumption that my whole rig is at 4750 and ignore those 48 mil scaff tube height. So there are two ways I can now convert this lighting pipe into a hanging position. One is to go into the spotlight dialog, go to object conversion, and select convert to hanging position. And the other thing I can do in the lighting pipe object info at the bottom, we have an option here. It's a button that says convert to hanging position. So because quite a lot of the time when you're drawing lighting pipes you do want to convert them into hanging positions, the good people of VectorWorks have added that option into the object info so you don't have to go through the menu up there. I'm going to click on that and I'm going to name this. Use a sensible name. Later on your paperwork, and if you're integrating with LightRide, you want to be able to easily find these lighting positions in a sensible place. So because this one is sitting between lighting position 7 and 8, I'm going to call mine LX71, assuming that I'm going to have a few more going across, which I can then name 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, counting from the left. You could make that LXA, 7A, or whatever you want. You can give it any name you like, but because LightRide has the function to alphabetize positions, I quite like to use something that will then later on automatically put it in a sensible place in my paperwork. So yeah, something like 7.1 or 7A is probably quite sensible. You can now see that it has created this little label here that shows the name of the hanging position I've just created. I can turn that off for neatness in my drawing because I don't necessarily want to see that label all the time, but you can turn that on and off in your sheet layers if you want to show it or not. So this is now a hanging position. It's sitting at a Z value of 4750 and it has the position name LX71, which is what I want. So when I put lanterns on this, they will attach automatically to the hanging position, which means in my paperwork I can sort them accordingly. And if I move this bar, all the lanterns hanging on this bar will move with it automatically.